What are the best TV brands these days? And what happened to some of the TV brands that used to be considered the best? Are they still around? And if so, are they still good? Let's talk about that. If you're a TV enthusiast, I bet you could list the top TV brands right now without blinking an eye. In fact, do that in the comments right now, and let's see how we match up by the end of this video. But do you know what happened to some of the top TV brands from, say, 15, 20, even 30 years ago? You might learn something by the end of this video. For most of you out there watching, though, especially if you haven't shopped for a TV in a while, I want to help you whittle down your choices a bit by telling you about the best TV brands on the market right now. And then we can get to talking about what happened to some of the brands that used to be great but no longer make the cut. Now, because I appreciate different brands for different reasons, I didn't want to order this list in rank of preference. There's just too much subjectivity there. And I didn't want to rank it purely based on sales. I mean, sales in the US only, fad, but like a little too myopic. Also, just because you move a lot of units doesn't mean you have high quality or good value. So ultimately, I decided not to rank them at all. I'm just going to go down the list, and along the way, I'll speak to what I like about each brand. But I did base my selections on price to performance ratio, feature sets, and innovation. First, we've got Samsung. Now, Samsung has been a powerhouse in the TV space since, I think, 2006. For sure, well over 15 years of just absolute dominance. And that's because Samsung was really aggressive at nearly every step. They just picked up the baton and at some point said, yeah, we make the rules now. We saw Samsung kind of co-opt the term QLED to describe quantum dot enhanced LED backlit TVs. At one point, it made the slimmest TVs you could buy. They waged a war against OLED TVs for years before giving in to OLED's allure eventually. Now they make a bunch of both, as well as more accessible LCD TVs that you're likely to see in just about any electronics department. And Samsung also innovated a lot. They make the Frame TV. They made the One Connect box. I think they were the first to make their smart TV OS so smartphone-like that they could slim down their remote to just a smattering of buttons. They have a self-charging remote now. The list goes on and on. Now, I do personally feel like Samsung kind of took their foot off the gas in the innovation department a couple of years ago and has been coasting a bit. But recently, they have shown their boldness again by embracing this rather remarkable anti-glare technology that I think is going to keep their top-tier TVs at the top of the list for a lot of TV buyers. The rest of what I know they would like to call innovation has mostly been around security and a bunch of AI stuff, the latter of which I don't think holds much appeal to at least US-based audiences. I don't know, maybe it sells better overseas. Anyway, Samsung made itself a household name, synonymous with quality and reliability, and while other TV brands are maybe grabbing more fetching headlines with futuristic TV tech ideas, Samsung is sticking to its guns, and it's still working. Also, hey, if you can buy the same brand of TV as one of the two most popular brands of smartphones, why not? Next up is LG. LG, right along with its Korean rival Samsung, went from a relatively lowly regarded brand, Lucky Gold Star, or later just Gold Star here in the US, to one of the most revered names in television history. LG's biggest moment, though, was its introduction of the world's first 55-inch OLED TV, roughly 11 years ago. And since then, LG has held court as the #1 brand in OLED televisions. For the past 11 years, LG's OLEDs have forced other brands to either hop on board the premium OLED bandwagon or risk becoming irrelevant in the premium TV space. I would argue that no single brand has done more to push TV technology innovation forward in the past 2 decades than LG. The reason your QLED TV looks so amazing today is because OLED always looked better and QLEDs needed to catch up. So whether you count yourself among LG's many fans, you gotta put respect on their name. Now, LG's dominant TV type is OLED, and while they do make LCD-based televisions, which they brand as QNED, don't call it QNED. Those haven't managed to be as popular as their OLED sets. That could change this year, though. Next, admittedly a longtime personal favorite, is Sony. You know, at one point, Sony was arguably the biggest name in TVs, period. I mean, the Trinitron, the Vega, Sony made the best. But when the South Korean titans LG and Samsung started eating up market share from Japanese TV companies like Sony, Toshiba, JVC, Mitsubishi, and Hitachi, Sony made a difficult and strategic and a lot would argue risky decision. They decided to lean into the premium TV space and lead that premium TV space. That meant fewer Sony TVs on store shelves, but could this all-premium model help keep the Sony brand at the top of many lists year after year? Yes, indeed, the plan worked. Today, Sony is one of only 2 Japanese brands on this list, and the second one only just came back after disappearing from the US for 10 years. Today, Sony makes high-end mini-LED and OLED TVs, but it seems like they've been leaning extra hard on their mini-LED technology lately. And that sort of naturally brings us to Panasonic, the next brand on this list. Panasonic didn't ship any TVs to the United States for a full decade. Now, I always held hope that they might make a return, but I'll admit, I didn't really think it was going to happen. Well, I've never been so happy to be wrong. Panasonic brought 3 TVs into the US in 2024 to rave reviews, by the way, and we expect even better from Panasonic in 2025. To be fair, Panasonic should always have been on any list of the best TV brands. It's just that since I'm in North America, it was impossible for me to have any first-hand experience with their products. Today, Panasonic offers 2 OLED TVs and 1 mini LED TV along with a new, more basic LED backlit TV for a total of 4 models here in the US. Next up, we have TCL. Based in China, TCL has the honor of having made the most shocking entry into the premium TV space that I, or many other reviewers, have ever seen in our lifetimes. Since that first 6 Series TV introduced in 2018, TCL has seen tremendously aggressive growth in the US and globally. To this day, I still think TCL offers the best mix of product body, picture quality, and price. Remember Samsung and LG in their up-and-coming years? Well, TCL has been taking a similar path, and they, along with my next entry, are on the precipice of knocking both Samsung and LG off their perches as the most popular TV brands in North America, and possibly the world. Today, TCL makes mostly QLED televisions with a mighty array of them using advanced mini-LED technology. Virtually in lockstep with TCL, we have the next brand, making my list, Hisense. Now, Hisense didn't ramp up quite as quickly as TCL, but what Hisense has done is adapt faster than any other TV brand I've ever seen. Actually, we can credit current Hisense USA President David Gold for the impressive growth in performance that Hisense TVs have enjoyed over the past several years. David Gold has passionately acted as a voice for U.S. consumers and successfully lobbied for Hisense to send its best to the U.S. Like TCL, Hisense is focused on LCD-based TV technologies, many of them QLED in nature, though Hisense likes to call it QLED, lots of them with mini LED backlight technology. And more recently, a very exciting new RGB mini LED technology running in its 116-inch flagship model. I kind of see Hisense as taking over the position of lighting a fire under other manufacturers. When it comes to price to performance ratio, I feel like Hisense is just as beatable. Next up, I have to acknowledge Philips, but with a huge caveat. I'm acknowledging Philips as it exists in the UK and Europe. The difference is that in the UK and Europe, Philips TVs are manufactured and distributed by KP Vision, and they are of very high quality. In the US and other regions, the Philips name is licensed out to products made by Funai. Funai makes products under the Philips and Magnavox brand names, and they're just not of the same super premium quality as the KP Vision Philips products. So that's my list of the best TV brands that you can buy right now. You may have noticed that I have not yet mentioned Vizio. That's true, and it makes me kind of sad to say that. I feel like Vizio has lost its way a little bit. As an industry insider, I always felt like Vizio engineers and the corporate brass were at odds with each other. There are some brilliant minds on the team at Vizio, or at least there were, but it seemed like they weren't allowed to make what they wanted to make, and because they had so much invested in their SmartCast operating system, which I never particularly cared for, nor did many others, They just fell behind with the aggressive competition coming from TCL and Hisense. Today, Vizio still produces televisions, but they're now owned by Walmart, and it remains to be seen what that will mean for Vizio's product quality on the long term. For now, with TCL and Hisense dominating the high-value and budget TV market, Vizio faces a serious challenge to rise to such a level that it would be considered one of the better TV brands available. I also want to take a second to give two brands an honorable mention here. These brands don't make the list officially because there are just too many competing brands doing it just as well, if not better. But keep an eye on Roku and Amazon. Both companies are designing and batching TVs made for them by other two new manufacturers. And the best models by both brands are actually pretty solid. Like I said, they don't quite make the list of the best TV brands, but they are definitely part of the conversation, and it wouldn't be right to ignore them. Now, what about once popular brands like Toshiba, JVC, RCA, and Sharp? What happened to them? You still see the brand names on TVs out there, but why aren't they on this list? What happened? Well, it's a similar story for just about all of them. The once great brand fell on tough financial times, and if the company didn't shutter entirely, the rights to the brand, and sometimes the IP, was sold to a huge manufacturing company or holdings company. In fact, Hisense owns a bunch of these formerly great brand names. In the end, these are like Tier 3 TVs. They tend to be inexpensive, accessible TVs with a lot of aggressive marketing language behind them, but when it comes to performance, they generally leave a lot to be desired. So, Toshiba is now owned by Hisense. JBC is owned by Amtran, which used to make Vizio TVs, come to think of it. Also, I think JBC TVs are sold in the UK, Europe, and Australia under Curry's name. Someone correct me on that in the comments. Sharp has an interesting story. It was sold to Hisense. Sharp is now owned by Foxconn, and Sharp has been buying back its rights and IP guard Slovenia. Now, Sharp did try to re-enter the US market recently, but that didn't go very well. I'm not sure why, but I'm still hopeful that Sharp will one day make a triumphant return. You know, Sharp used to be the big screen. RCA, they're now licensed to Chris International and Technicolor. Hitachi is licensed to Vestel in Europe and Hisense in Australia. And Samuel went to Panasonic for a minute before it ultimately landed in Hisense's ass. You'll start to understand just how powerful Hisense is in the TV space. I mean, it's crazy, right? So that's my bet on the best TV brands present and past. Will we soon see titans fall and relative unknowns make themselves part of the conversation? I kind of think that we will. A very wise man once said, "Times must and always do change, man." So I guess we'll see where we're at this time next year. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. What do you think of this list? I know you'll be telling me in the comments everyone has a brand they love and loves to hate. Please like, comment, and subscribe. The channel needs your support more than ever, and you do so appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like.